start off this seminar with the verses of the Holy Quran. For that, I would like to call upon Ahmed Naveed.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والضحى والليل إذا سجى ما ودعك ربك وما قلى وللآخرة خير لك من الأولى ولسوف يعطيك ربك فترضى ألم يجدك يتيما فآوى ووجدك ضالا فهدى ووجدك عائلا فأغنى فأما اليتيم فلا تقهر وأما السائل فلا تنهر وأما بنعمة ربك فحدث صدق الله العظيم.
Jazakallah. Today, the seminar includes a discussion on the fourth industrial revolution, what it means and how it responds. Ladies and gentlemen, change is inevitable, and today we stand on the brink of a technological revolution that will fundamentally alter the way we live, we work, and we interact with each other. Today we have the company of Sir Mr. Yusuf Husaain. He is the CEO of Innovate, which is formerly known as the National ICT and R&D Fund. Mr. Yusuf is a tech entrepreneur with international experience in startups, funding, offshore development, internet marketing, and internet business models. He was the co-founder of PressSoft Inc., an e-commerce company with Fortune 500 and Global 2000 clients. He has served as a consultant to the World Bank and the United Nations. He has also served as a technological advisor to the government of Pakistan and helped them formulate a national technology policy. And today, with the help of Mr. Yusuf, we'll find out and see how to respond to these changes, to these technological changes that are happening as we speak right now, efficiently and more productively. Ladies and gentlemen, so without any further ado, please welcome Sir Yusuf Husaain.
It's an honor to be here today. Thank you for inviting me, distinguished students, Mr. Vice Chancellor, and faculty. My presentation today is about 5 ideas to innovate Pakistan. So what is innovation and why is it important to us? Anybody want to take a guess? What is innovation? How do you define innovation? Yes.
Coming up with something new, something different, something effective and more efficient.
Okay, good. Something new, something different, something more efficient. Yeah.
Something unique.
Unique.
Something out of the way.
Out of the way.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Something that adds value to the previous product or service.
Adds value. Okay, good. Looks like everybody who's answering is, birds of a feather flock together. So they're all asking. Questions, by the way, are very important. Scientists say that asking the right question, understanding the problem, is 50% of the solution. It's a curious mind, the questioning mind, which creates innovation. So all good points. What is innovation? Today, the definition of innovation which I'm using is that when an invention or an idea gets transformed into a product or service that impacts society and for which people may be willing to pay. Or in simple words, or in simple language, innovation happens when an idea comes out of your head and impacts society. So I remember I was here maybe 2 months ago. There were very nice final year projects on display here, I think next to the Husaain school, robotics, Internet of Things and so on. But when an innovation happens, those lab prototypes come out in the marketplace, people buy them, and the more people buy them, the more impact they create, the more money they generate. That is what I am defining as innovation today. So not just something which is new, but something which creates an impact. So that is innovation. Next question is, and let me give you a little example of innovation, because which also illustrates जो हम जैसे कहते हैं कि ज़रूरत इजाद की माँ है. So we in Ignite, we fund these final year project competitions. So one student out of Balochistan, a graduate of UTEMS, his brother had suffered some serious injuries about 4 years ago in a mining accident. 4 years ago. And he made a commitment to himself then that he would do something to improve the safety and the dignity of labor of miners in Balochistan. So he got his opportunity in a final year project, and he built this smart helmet, Internet of Things based helmet, which detects poisonous gas, detects oxygen content, temperature, humidity. It monitors your pulse, your blood pressure, and your location. And it's specially built for semi-literate miners, all the type we have in Pakistan or other developing countries. And he already sold 20 units. That's about a couple of months ago. So that is an example of innovation. That's a great example of innovation. It's coming out of a relatively remote part of Pakistan. It's based on latest technology, and he's selling it and making an impact, and people are willing to pay for it. So that's a great example. So that is what innovation is. What is the importance of innovation? What is the importance of innovation? So to illustrate that importance, I'm going to show you a slide, but before let me tell you that up until 1775 or so, Asia accounted for 80% of the global GNP. So we had the Mughals in India, we had Safavids in Persia, we had Ming and Qing dynasties in China, and we had the Ottomans in Turkey. Together they were 80%. Yet, a century later, Asia was colonized, it was in chains. What happened? Why did this thing happen? One of the major reasons, or the major reason, was the railway, the steam engine, which constituted what we call the first industrial revolution. And I'll talk about these other, sorry? We'll talk about these other industrial revolutions later, what is second, third, fourth industrial. But it was, and it took one empire or one country, which was England, to great heights. And does anybody know who that photograph is of? Bottom right? Babar Shah Zafar and Rangoon. And the other, it just destroyed them. What happened? Well, I'm not a historian, but if anybody's heard of Sapiens, A Brief History of Mankind, Yuval Noah Harari, he is a historian, one of the best in the world. And he, analyzing this, said that Europe had developed the mindset, the legal structures, the economic structures to create innovation after innovation. Whether it was a steam engine, it was the Gutenberg press, it was other such things. But here in Asia, we did not have that. They were not innovating. And now it could have been that the Ottomans or the Mughals could have bought a steam engine. They could have replicated its copy, have it copied, get some mechanics. But all these basic structures were not there. So on the one hand, the disruption was called where a whole empire, the Mughal Empire, came to a halt. And on the other hand, this new empire rose. And this graph shows on the y-axis, the GNP, the global GNP of the world. On the y-axis, which is here, it goes from 0 to about $50 trillion. And on the x-axis, it goes from year 0 AC, 0 AD or BC, to the modern day. Right? And as you can see, that for much of history, global GNP was relative, it was nothing, it was 0. But over the last 200 or so years, it has risen exponentially. Does anybody know what the global GNP is today? It's almost $80 trillion. $80 trillion. Now, some of it can be explained by population growth. But if you look at population, back in 1500, the world's population was about 50 million people. Today it's about 8 billion, it's risen about 40 times. But the GNP has risen about 800 times. So all this is driven by innovation. This is the importance of innovation. So the key idea is that, like I mentioned, that innovation affects the very rhythms and the course of history, and it's doing so today as well. So, idea number 1 out of the 5 ideas. Maybe a parent idea, all these 5 ideas actually, there's nothing new about them, nothing innovative about them. You just have to look at what are the 5 important things. The first thing for everybody to understand is innovation drives prosperity, what you saw, $80 trillion today. But it also disrupts. It leaves other people sidelined. So when Facebook becomes Facebook, it does not just become Facebook, it eradicates all the other social networks that go out of business. That's what innovation does. Now, when we talk about some of the innovations, we talk about, let's say, Daraz or Rosie.tk or what have you. They are innovations, what we say, as we say in your rear view mirror, they've already happened. They're not innovations anymore, they're part of mainstream society or economy. What is the next wave of innovation? What is the next wave of innovation which is coming like a wave that if we catch, like the railway engine came or whatever, what is the next wave of innovation? Before that, what are the previous waves, major waves of innovation? One was agriculture, like 10,000 years ago. Like we mentioned, first we had the steam engine. So when the steam engine came, it shrunk distances between cities or producers and customers. It boosted trade. Steam engines were also used in factories. So that created productivity and efficiency gains. Then the second industrial revolution was electricity, which obviously lit up the night, drove machines, increased our productivity. And the third was IT, as we call it, which is about a generation old, created productivity, efficiency anyway. The new wave of innovation that I'm sure a bunch of you would have heard of is, but before I come to that, what is happening, what are the components of this new wave of innovation, which is already happening today, why is it different from IT? Now, what we see is that even today, young lawyers in the United States are finding it hard to find a job. Why? Because artificial intelligence programs analyze legal history and give the references, not prepare the cases yet, but give the references much better than any lawyer. And in case you think this is the US, not here, I can tell you that here in Pakistan, the legal thing may come soon. I know there are some startups working on it, but even today there are hospitals. I know Shaukat Khanum Memorial Trust Hospital is looking at IBM Watson. It's looking at a solution to develop, to implement a diagnostic solution. Why? Because this artificial intelligence diagnoses disease or detects cancer 10 times better than any doctor. This is happening today. It's happening in Pakistan. It's not far away. Similarly, if we look at robotics, again, in the United States, most of the jobs, even though Trump thinks it's tariff barriers or whatever, robotics are taking American jobs away. ILO says, International Labour Organization says, that 35% of manufacturing jobs will be lost to robots in East Asia. But again, it's not something far away. In neighboring India, Raymond, which is one of the textile manufacturers, announced they're replacing 10,000 jobs with robots. Why? Because robots are less expensive and they work better. So the question is that if you use robots, you increase your competitiveness. If you don't use them, you become uncompetitive. But if you use them, you create unemployment. So already, as you may know, Pakistan's exports, which were $25 billion, have gone down to $20 billion. A big reason is obviously competitiveness. Part of that is electricity, part of that is lack of innovation, which improves their processes or which introduces new products. Meanwhile, a country like Bangladesh has gone from $25 billion to $30 billion. They are 50%, they're exporting 50% more than us, and their per capita GNP of Bangladesh is now more than us. Right? So whoever is grabbing it, they've become the number 2 country in the world for freelancing. We are number 4. Whoever is grabbing these new opportunities is moving ahead. Again, like we said, innovation creates prosperity and it disrupts and leaves other people behind. So here's the dilemma with robotics. I mean, there are agricultural robots. We are about to fund a project of agricultural robot. It tills the land, plants a seed, fertilizer, pesticide, water management. The price of these agricultural robots could fall to $100 or 10,000 rupees. What's going to happen to rural level, industrial level? And I know I was reading in Nasgrad has put some robots in his father's restaurant in Multan. What's going to happen to the service sector? So what is idea number 2? The next wave of innovation is the 4th industrial revolution or the 4th industrial wave, and it comprises the cyber, physical, digital tech. What that means is, cyber is like IT, digital, but we also have physical, which is like robots. They are physical. We have biological, which means like neurotechnology. I'll go into that a little bit. We have implantables, technology like that. So it is not just about, actually that's a bit of a mistake, say cyber, physical, biological. So cyber is IT, but now we have physical like robots, and then we have biological, like, which is the human body, implantables, wearables, like Fitbit, smart, monitoring. So this is the idea number 2, that the next wave of innovation, we know what it is. It is these scanner-curve technologies. I'm going to talk a little bit more about them later, but I gave you 2 examples of the widespread disruption they're causing. Something like artificial intelligence, it's becoming like IT. It's going to be everywhere. From universities, I can tell you that in the United States, they use AI, deep learning, to match the roommates in college dorm rooms. They look at their whole personalities, it keeps learning. They suggest courses for students, industry. AI, artificial intelligence is penetrating every aspect. So that's idea number 2. Next wave of innovation, 4th industrial wave. And idea number 1 was innovation surges, disrupts. Next idea is, what is our goal? What do we need to do as a country, as a society? The whole idea is that we become producers of technology, not consumers. In other words, we are building these robots, we are coding these artificial intelligence programs, and we are not importing them from overseas and selling them or servicing them. Because when you sell something, you service something, I mean, your value add is small and you're earning 20, 30, 40,000 rupees a month. But when you're manufacturing and developing and designing them, then you're making 150,000 or 1 million rupees a month. How do we get there? That's your idea. When we say we have to ride the wave, it means develop and design it, build it. That's your idea. The next, and the other thing is that in the last 30 years, which is the organizational structure in the last 30 years which has created this innovation? It's not academia. For example, American universities, maybe 1% of the patents they filed got commercialized. There are some spectacular successes, but 99% of patents, research in universities doesn't even result in commercialization. Similarly, government R&D institutes, they may fund competitions, like DARPA funds robotics competitions, or ARPA created the internet and the smartphone. But in terms of putting it all together, innovating, commercializing, the only organization structure which has done that is what we call the startup, the tech startup. The tech startup brings together technology development, market savviness, and the speed and agility it takes to respond to market changes. Why we've written here that it doesn't, people don't fail, startups do. Why we said that? Because startups are small companies, but they're not small versions of Nayatel or Telenor or Standard Chartered. Startups are experiments. You try this, you do A/B testing, does this work, doesn't, change it, work, try another thing. And many times there's a good dose of luck in there. For example, I'll give you one example of this experimentation. There was a company that had a business model that they are going to webcast audio messages, right? They're going to broadcast audio messages. But then Apple came up with their webcast, other companies came up, so they said, these what we call 800-pound gorillas, these big companies with huge marketing budgets, they've taken our idea and we can't compete. So they've taken money from venture capitalists and they said, we return your money. So the venture capitalists said that, okay, we appreciate you saying that you're returning our money, and it's true, but we looked at your data. Data is very important. Your users, what are they saying, what's your feedback, and the users say that there may be a need not for audio broadcast, but for text broadcast. So that company from audio broadcast started to text message broadcasting, right? Does anybody know the name of that company? No? The name of that company is Twitter. That company which gave money back and said we'll shut down became Twitter. So that's what we mean, that startups sometimes fail, but people don't, sometimes it takes a little, they were what we call by the skin of their teeth, they were closing down, they raised close to great success. And other times when startups fail, the founders are more in demand, more venture capital will invest in them, more companies will hire them. Why? Because they are experienced. They know what works and what doesn't work, or at least they know what doesn't work. So that's why you've got to keep learning and you've got to keep experimenting. This is the list of the most valuable companies in the world. Top line is 2001. Now the black companies are the traditional companies. General Electric is a $300 billion company, makes everything from X-ray machines to light bulbs to missiles. Exxon Mobil, biggest oil company or public oil company in the world, other than Saudi Aramco. Citibank. Green are the technology companies. What's happened between 2001 and 2016? The most valuable companies in the world are all startups, right? So Alphabet, everybody know what Alphabet is? No? Alphabet? The parent company of Google. So one company, $582 billion. To give you context, the whole valuation of all the companies on the Pakistan Stock Exchange is less than $100 billion. Apple may be the first company, because there's 2016 which crosses $1 trillion in value. So these are startups. How do we create them in this country? There are some already. Daraz is there, which is probably valued more than $100 million. Innovate is there. There's some. So, but these startups are now appearing in other countries. China has startups which are almost as big. They're going to cross them soon, like Alibaba, Baidu, Tencent. India has about 9 of these, which are smaller but rising fast, like Paytm, like Flipkart. So all this is spreading all over the world. These are the companies, the startups, which are the employers of tomorrow, which are the revenue generators, employment generators of tomorrow. And of course, the key idea is the behavioral mindset change it takes in all of you is that how many of you are looking for a job, in something like, hopefully not, but something like CSS or Telenor, and how many of you are going to be innovative, create new companies and hire the rest of you. That is a key shift. How many of you are going to hire your classmates rather than go take your CSS exam? So the next idea number 3, startups are the building blocks of the new economy or the knowledge economy. Startups are the building blocks. They are the what brings university research and R&D research and industry people, marketing people together. These are the future. And thankfully, actually, if you look at in the time of the last government, People's Party, Nadeem ul-Haq was the Deputy Chairman Planning Commission. He published a report which was called Pakistan's Place in the Future. Now we have Vision 2025. Both say that entrepreneurship, startups are the future. They can add up to 2% in your annual growth rate. So that's the third idea. Startups are the building blocks of the emerging economy. Next point. Who is going to run these startups? Obviously, people like yourself. But the key thing, what skills do we require? Now, 10 years ago, when I was MD PSEB, we brought in this very top consultant. He was a vice president with Gartner, author of 2 books on the knowledge economy and education. His name was Tony Murphy. He spent about 2 months here. From schools, universities, industry, met everybody, and wrote a very good strategy for us, for the government, private sector, where to focus, what to build on. But one of his key things, which I can never forget, which he said was that we cannot afford to learn. We must learn to learn. I don't know how many of you understand that, but this, for you individually, this is the key idea to understand. If you are going to memorize what you're studying in your university, in your courses, your value is decreasing. It's not only Google search. You can memorize whatever that some other person who can get on Google search, but those people who just know rote learning, who've not understood the principles, who cannot apply the principles in new situations, they are going to be replaced by artificial intelligence and robotics. That's a key message. Even programmers, robo-coders are going to program basic stuff. So, and the whole thing is that the pace of change is so high, the new situations are being thrown up. Even before, even 10 years ago, people used to say that 80% of what you're going to learn, you're never going to use again, it's going to be obsolete by the time you graduate. One of the top universities in the world is Singularity University. Why is it top? 80% of Fortune 500 CEOs take courses there, 1 week, 2 week, 3 week courses. And 80% of those who take the courses say, it's changed our way of thinking. Because they tell you what impact artificial intelligence or implantables or IoT or robotics are going to have in the future. They are not even accredited. Why are they not accredited? Every semester, more than half of their coursework is changed. That's why Coursera, Udemy, edX are coming up in the United States, because universities can't keep pace with the new technology. So what's happening? What is this shaping up to be? What, in this environment of change, new technologies, and Pakistan is one of the top freelancing countries in the world, freelancing means that new technologies are coming. Everybody has to keep pace. It can't be that Pakistan is protected. So what's going to happen in this change, in this universities not keeping pace? What we find is that people call them soft skills. But I was meeting with the chief operating officer of Coursera, and she said, we call it power skills, not soft skills. Let me give you a little bit of background. There's a company in Karachi called There's a company in Karachi called Career Advisory Services and Career Advisory and Learning Services. They did a survey of 600 employees in Pakistan, corporations, and they said that in your fresh graduates, what are the key deficiencies? And they said the key deficiency, 75% said the key deficiency is lack of soft skills. What do we mean by the soft skills? We mean integrity, meaning keeping commitments, delivering what you say on time, being on time, and excuse me for being late today, but meeting commitments, integrity, communication skills, verbal skills, written skills, team spirit. They did not say technical skills, these were the skills. So, and when this lady called them not soft skills, because traditional, she says those are soft skills, and hard skills or technical skills are engineering or finance and accounts or marketing, and these are soft skills. These are actually power skills. If you can master these, you're going to be empowered in the world of the future. Creativity, we already said that. How can you apply basic principles to come up with new ideas. And creativity starts with curiosity. Curiosity is shown by questions. I can always tell when I'm interviewing, or we get new interns, or one is giving talks, who are the kind of people we want to hire. They're the people who ask questions. They're the people who disagree with you. They're the people who raise their hand and say, this is why I think you're wrong. Because that's the whole idea of innovation, that the old order is bettered by the new order. That's why in a startup, you see in other, let's say in the military, or in the government, or in Telenor, an older, mature person has a lot more respect than an intern, right? But not so in the world of startups, not so in our company Ignite. Why? Because that person walking in can be the next Mark Zuckerberg, Bajaj Siraj, Mona Sarma. That's why you got to look at young people. Because these are the young people, because in the beginning, you had a company that probably none of you have heard of it called Sperry Univac. And a new company came around, the name was IBM, and Sperry Univac shut down. Then IBM came along, they missed out on PCs, Microsoft stood. Microsoft took over the PC space, Bill Gates became the richest guy. But Bill Gates thought internet is a passing fancy, and Google came along. And Google came along, and then Google missed out on the power of social network, Facebook came along, right? These are young, new people, 19 years old, your age, who just believe in themselves, they have the confidence, they have the creativity, they have what I call like the hearts of lions. They take the risk because they believe in themselves. The entrepreneur, the founder, and an adventurer are very similar. It's the same mindset. They take risks. And once again, it's not for everybody. I mean, many of you are best suited to do jobs. It's not for everybody. But those of you who have that sense of adventure, that risk, that's why we have this running thing. Who have that, who bring together this creativity and this risk-taking and taking initiative is there for you. Even if you look at a company like Telenor, they have what they like to hire what are called intrapreneurs. They're not entrepreneurs who are creating their own companies, but if you look at Telenor, they came up with Easy Pesa. They came up with M-Agriculture, which is going to be the next Easy Pesa. They just came up with 3 more applications which have more than 1 million downloads. These are created by young people like yourself inside who are taking risks and thinking creatively. So the people who have initiative, who will train themselves, who will educate themselves, who will do it themselves, who are self-driven, who have an engine inside them, have a great future. But people who need push, who are kind of lazy, or they're not that pushed and they need somebody, either their parents or their professor or their boss telling them, come on, you didn't do this, they don't have that greater future because they are already threatened by, like we said, artificial intelligence and robotics. So to empower yourself, these are the things you have to think about. So that's idea number 4. The future of work is going to be very different. It's happening in Pakistan right now. There's a new digital divide coming between people with initiative and creativity and communication skills and integrity, who like to share, who speak from the heart, who don't hide things and try to play politics, but who are, because creativity comes from bouncing ideas off. If you're not open and sharing and speaking from the heart, you're not doing it 100%. You're going at 50%. You won't be that creative. So to prepare yourself for the future, I would suggest think about that. Next idea is that innovation does not happen in a vacuum. Like we said, like we quoted Yuval Noah Harari, if you have not read that book, it's an excellent book to read. Paints the whole history of humankind and the last chapters of where the future is headed. That because Europe had the thinking, these 5 ideas, they had inculcated them. They had the legal structures, for example, intellectual property protection, courts, which gave honest opinion on business contracts and conflict, and then the research institutions, the new companies like the East India Company, companies like the Dutch East Company. These are actually, if you look at it, and if you read Hariri, you'll understand that the colonization of Europe was led by companies like East India Company. Same thing with Dutch conquest of Indonesia. It was a Dutch trading company. These were actually all companies. Because they had that and they had the funding. For example, the voyage of a guy like Christopher Columbus discovering new land, which increased prosperity, was funded by the port. Because they had that, they did that. So what does that mean today? What that means today is that all these governments, and I have the maps of India and Israel and China, they all support startups. Also, for example, in India, 2 years ago, Prime Minister Narendra Modi announced a startup package, $1.5 billion. They already have about $5 billion worth of funding per year. We have about $50 million, 100. On top of that, he announces $1.5 billion in new incubators, new funding. Similarly, Israel, they had a AUSOM program, fund of funds, they funded other funds. You look at United States, dark power feeding startups. You look at all of these, there's a lot that they're doing, building incubators, venture capital fund, digital skills training, all these governments are doing. So that's idea number 5, that the government has a role to play. I say that because many people say that startup culture is so different from government culture, government should keep away. But the reality is all these governments have played a big role. Now coming to the end of my presentation, Ignite, formerly National ICT R&D Fund. Have people heard of National ICT R&D Fund? Yes? New name is Ignite, to express a new vision. Igniting a new tomorrow, igniting change, igniting new vision. So our mission is to make Pakistan a global player in the knowledge economy by providing venture capital, which we give in the form of grants. Has anybody heard of venture capital? So because some people said you're not really a venture capital fund, we are not registered with SCCP. So, but I thought we were a venture capital fund which gave grants to fourth industrial wave tech. But to settle that, I posted a question on Quora. I hope you people also use Quora. I posted a question on Quora, I tagged all the VCs and I said, I am a non-profit which gives grants to tech companies. Am I a venture capital fund? So half the VC said, no, you're not, because you have to invest, take equity, which I knew already, obviously. But the remaining half said, which is what I believe, that there's no technical definition of what is venture capital, even in Investopedia. So you can call it venture capital because you are investing in ventures, startups are ventures, and capital, equity is capital, loans are capital, grants are capital. So I like to call it venture capital so that people are focused. Before we used to fund pure academic R&D projects over the last 10 years, SRO says innovation, but these R&D projects ended when the funding ended, and they were limited to lab prototypes or patents. They did not impact the economy. But our SRO says, our government mandate says, we have to create a knowledge economy. So now we fund startups, and if any academic projects come to us, we insist that they do some customer research beyond doing some cut and paste from some magazine or book that IoT has great applications in agriculture and but no. We say, interview your customers, find out what exactly they want, what price are they willing to pay, who are your customers, will they buy your product if you make it. We say, have a go-to-market strategy. Are you going to sell it through distributors? Are you going to partner with a multinational? Are you going to sell the company? Are you going to go to customers directly? Is it going to be email marketing, SMS, Google, Facebook? We want you to start thinking. And we want commercial partners. So for example, we funded a project from Karachi Institute of University there. They have partnered with K Electric, who will buy the product. So we want that kind of thing. And we insist that they hire a CEO who's from the private sector down the line and launch a startup. Otherwise, we don't invest in it. Because again, the whole idea is innovation, impact on the economy, not lab prototypes. So these are the areas we are focused in as a venture capital fund. These are also the constituent areas, or 10 of the about 16 constituent areas of fourth industrial wave. We are now funding startups in all these areas other than 3D 4D printing and blockchain. But we have 2 blockchain proposals we hope to fund that as well. As an overview, what we do is we are building incubators which are nurseries or greenhouses for startups. Hopefully some of you have seen a incubator in Islamabad, which is called the National Incubation Center. It is run by Jazz. People who visited from around the world, including the founder of Stanford X, the Stanford Incubator, said it was world class. And we'll build 2 more, one in Lahore, which will be run by the Lump Center of Entrepreneurship, one in Peshawar, which will be run by PTCL and LMKT by the end of this year. We'll launch it. And then we are putting out RFPs this weekend on incubators in Karachi and Qatar. We funded 140 projects, but like I mentioned, they were these academic research and development projects which we are no longer interested in. Our future is a focus on startups, and this quarter we'll fund more startups than academic projects. We've also funded big programs, Prime Minister scholarship scheme for universities, Balochistan talented student. But going forward, we in the next month we'll be launching a big new program to train 1 million people in the future of work, in the skills of the future that I just mentioned, including freelancing, including power skills, creativity, and all these other areas, artificial intelligence, data science, deep learning, IoT, robotics, virtual reality. So we'll be putting up a portal and we'll be providing training in all these, Urdu, English mixed to appeal that more. And then the fourth thing that we do is, again, creating that ecosystem, regulatory framework. Last budget we got a 3-year tax exemption for startups, and we hope to bring in a lot more incentives for startups, venture capital, which is the funding for startups, angel investors, incubators. These are just some of the projects that we are funding. I'm not going to go over all of them, but just a couple. For example, top left is a project for a smart stent. So when you do angioplasty, you put a stent when your artery is constricting. The smart stent detects if it's slipping, if there's restenosis or re-narrowing, or if there's a hematoma or blood clot. So it's it's called an implantable. And for example, bottom left, we are doing a IoT and robotics-based product. Again, there's a university in Karachi which has signed up a customer in Saudi Arabia which does proactive maintenance. It detects gas leakage and other maintenance. By the way, another project we are doing, I mentioned with K Electric, it looks at, it's a robot running on overhead cables. You're using ultrasound and laser, it detects if there's going to be a breakage. So it saves them hundreds of thousands of dollars by replacing cables before they break, and also reduces electricity disruption. And you can see some of the other projects. Top right one is by Dr. Atar Rahman, HEZ Institute of Chemistry. It's a database which will detect and verify natural substances in cosmetics and pharmaceuticals, and they've already signed up 4 customers in the US. So that's what we like to see, that this thing is going to go somewhere. And so on. Robust tax evasion is an artificial intelligence-based cybersecurity framework which anticipates what kind of cyber attacks you may be having. It detects signatures before they happen. Again, deep learning. Bottom left is also very interesting. Internet of Things based water management system detects moisture in the air, fluid in the ground, and manages water supply. As you may have heard, water is a big challenge. People anticipate wars on water going forward. And bottom right is a augmented reality software startup. They use it to improve motor skills, cognition skills in autistic children. Again, they've signed up 3 hospitals here and 3 in the US. So you can see 4th industrial wave technology with customers signed up, so there's a path. That map just shows where we are setting up our incubators. After that, obviously, with the approval of the board, and depending on what the board agrees to, we also are going to set up some special incubators in Internet of Things, robotics, and blockchain. And we hope to have about 100,000 square feet and 230 startups a year. And finally, I mentioned digital skills program. So these are some of the IT skills that it's going to have. We are getting the curriculum from IBM. It is accredited in the United States universities, and it is all based on hands-on programming. Because general feedback we receive is that many universities, from industry is, they say before maybe 10% of graduates could make a contribution in IT, now it's maybe 2%, because they don't know programming well. For most of the universities, they can't program. So this will be actual programming projects. And then some non-IT skills which are in high demand, expected to be in high demand over the next 2 years. Freelancing itself, so that anybody, be they a journalist, a nurse, a doctor, a lawyer, marketing major, anything, can get on whatever, Fiverr or Upwork, and sell their skills online. And then finally, the power skills that we talked about, the basic things required, for at least for these. How do you communicate well? Verbal communication. Verbal communication, by the way, the main thing of verbal communication is to have clarity of thought, to research enough, to ask enough questions, to get the answers of those questions by talking to people or researching, that you have clarity of thought. Then verbal and written communication becomes much easier. Self-motivation, like I said, those people out of you or me, I am trying to learn all the time, because I know that if I don't keep learning for the industrial wave, I'm not going to be useful anymore. I'll be sidelined. It's really what we call cradle to grave learning. Who has the initiative to keep their skills up to date, keep learning, studying the environment, they're going to win out. But people who stagnate, whenever you stagnate, you can be replaced, unfortunately, by a formula or an algorithm when you stagnate, when you're not being creative. Time management is very important. Keeping commitments is very important. Problem solving skills, like we talked about, critical thinking, finding patterns in chaos. What are the most important things to hone in on? How do they relate to each other? To solve a problem, what is the root cause? Those are very important. And then working with others. You can be a genius, unless you're a genius, then you don't need to work with others. Others will make an effort to work with you. But otherwise, you have to get along with others. And this is the last slide, I think. Yeah. So anyway, this is getting a bit much, but it's something called the Pakistan stack. This is something we hope to do in the future. Just to give you an example, India has something called the India stack. And Deloitte and Touche did a study on them, and they said this India stack is a $1 trillion opportunity. And Bill Gates said that India stack will allow India to vault over the United States in IT. What is it? It's basically an online identity. So it's biometric verified, scenic verified by somebody like Nadra, and then all your documents, from your national identity card, your university degrees, driver's license, marriage certificate, anything is online. So you can transact with anybody else, with a bank or with APIs for e-government service through this. So this is something which we've not really done any work on yet, but I think Pakistan as a whole needs something like this to take us into the revolution. And then we also plan to do a startup portal. So there's one window where startups can come in, get funding, apply for incubators, find out about government incentives, and so on. And that's it. Thank you. So do you have any questions? Do you have questions?
First of all, thank you so much, sir, for sparing your valuable time for our students. Now, I would like to formally open the floor for questions with the raise of your hands. Yes, the guy there, Lake.
My question is, does the fourth industrial revolution encourage a socialist or capitalist market? And I would like you to observe this from the nature of market of Pakistan. And then what sort of policy changes would be needed in order to incorporate the fourth industrial revolution better?
I think very good question, which I don't really have an answer to. Except to say that I have some questions in my mind already. What are they? So on the one hand, we know that the only model which has worked over the last 30, 40 years is a free market model. We know that communism has collapsed and even China has become free market. We know that. Yet, with so many robots and AI coming, a lot of people are going to be out of jobs. So a person like Elon Musk, which I hope all of you have heard of, who's the founder of Tesla and SpaceX, says that what we need is universal basic income because there are going to be too many people with no jobs. On the other hand, a lot of these goods, food, clothing, will be produced very efficiently. So the equivalence of that is to say that everybody is on Benazir income support fund, right? That is a kind of a socialist thing where everybody is guaranteed a universal basic income. So, and I believe there's a town in Norway which has actually implemented that. So number one, because of the fourth industrial revolution, so many goods being available so cheaply and abundantly, but on the other hand, people not having jobs, we may be forced to move to a socialistic model, number one. And then there are other dilemmas as well, such as there is the dilemma of privacy. Because now all your life is so tagged on location and all your opinions, people know so much about you. That's another kind of moral dilemma. Other than this model, that's in the second moral dilemma. A third moral dilemma is that because with robots and AI, we'll become even more lazy and indolent and unhealthy. So that's like a third moral dilemma. So there are some moral dilemmas posed by the Industrial Revolution, including this capitalist versus socialist thing, which I don't really have an answer to except to say it's something we've got to think about and ponder. More people like you got to think about it and come up with solutions.
Sir, I want to ask, is this the last industrial revolution? Like there have been previous revolutions, but this one is emerging day by day. It has new dimensions. So will this be the last one, or there is another dimension to this one?
Okay. Because, thank you. You see, I don't want to answer the question directly, but before I want to share something with you because we got to make it interesting as well. One of the first IBM chairman, Bob Watson Sr., said that the global sales of computers would level off at 50 a year. That was the chairman of IBM saying no more than 50 computers would be sold a year. Bill Gates called the internet a passing fancy. And Steve Ballmer, his successor CEO at Microsoft, said that the iPhone is going to be a failure, which became 70% of Apple revenue. I'm giving you these examples to tell you that even great industry stalwarts find it very hard to forecast technology trends, right? Number one. So it's very hard to say. But if you read, and reading I think is very important, if you read somebody like Michio Kaku, Future of Mind, where we are headed, you see, I'll tell you something. Even in the midst of this IT revolution, most people said that whatever we are going to see has been invented. Remember, most of the history of humankind, life went on as normal, there was no innovation. That's why I remember the curve that in the end there was no innovation. So if you look at human beings before agricultural revolution, everybody was tribal, herb eater, there was no new invention. Then agriculture, there was no new invention. Everybody was living in villages. Suddenly, we are seeing some new innovations coming over the last 150 years. People said whatever we've seen in IT. But I think if you read futurists, like for example Ray Kurzweil, the founder of Singularity University, they'll tell you that we are heading to a space which you can barely imagine. You are going into a space, they say, and all trends lead that way, that we will be asking questions that who are we? Are we human beings? Because today you can implement a pacemaker, right? You can implement a smart stent. Now you're becoming what is called a cyborg, half human, half machine. Now what happens, and I know in NUST, probably here also, I've seen projects where they have these brainwave detectors, neurotech brainwave detectors, and you can think of things and direct your wheelchair or anything that way, it picks up your brainwaves, right? So we are coming to a stage where, let's say, robotics is going to a level where prosthetics for handicapped people or just using ESP to transfer, because if they are picking up your waves and if the same level of improvement goes, other people can pick up your brain waves and it'll be ESP. You can move objects with your brain waves. It's electrokinesis. It's almost just if anybody's interested in spiritualism or Sufism, ESP, electrokinesis, just by thinking something you'll be moving objects, communicating with objects. Not just that, they're saying that we will be able to map your entire brain. Now, if they map your entire brain, they're on the verge of doing that like they map the human genome. If they map your entire brain, all your synapses and neurons onto a computer, plus it's a deep learning computer which is learning all the time, is that computer now conscious? Is that life? Is that you? Michio Kaku says that is you, because it's your complete brain map. How you think, how you feel, your memories, your habits, your inclination has been replicated, and it's improving with its deep learning. So he's saying we can send that into space at the speed of light, and it's you discovering new things. So tomorrow even, and then of course as people talk about singularity, Elon Musk talks about singularity. He says that in the next 10-15 years, we don't know exactly when, computer intelligence will surpass human intelligence. So robots will become smarter than you. The first IBM Watson beat the chess grand champion about 20 years ago. Then they beat them in something called, Jeopardy. They beat them in Go. The artificial intelligence, they're now, lawyers are smart. Artificial intelligence is smarter than lawyers and doctors and investors. If you continue the trajectory, in 10-15 years, artificial intelligence will be smarter than humans, and through robotics, they can create themselves. So are we then going to be threatened by literally a more superior race? So there are all sorts of strange things that should happen in the future. It's growing exponentially.
Sir, I want to know that, as you said that 10,000 people lost their job in India because robots replaced them. So my question is that, can we call the future as jobless future?
Yes, that was actually our first question, that a lot of people won't have jobs. So let's say maybe myself, maybe a bunch of you will be on Benazir income support plan.
One last question.
Good afternoon. My question is that you mentioned that Pakistan is the top freelancing country in the world. So I'm right here.
Okay.
It's the top freelancing country in the world. What does that mean? What does freelancing mean? That do we work for others and we're not innovating for our own nation? Is that what?
That is what it means.
So where do you think Pakistan's own innovation will lead to in the next 10 years? We'll be slaves to the Bill Gates and the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world. So how can we innovate in our own country and develop our own country and take it to a platform where we can compete with the Mark Zuckerberg?
Okay, good question. So the number one freelancing country in the world is the United States of America, which is also the most innovative country in the world, right? Number two is Bangladesh, number three is India, number four is Pakistan. So everybody, I wish everybody was very innovative. All of you were very innovative. But at the end of the day, some are going to be more innovative and more importantly, bigger risk takers than others. Those innovators and risk takers are going to create startups. They are going to hire the rest of you. Either they are going to hire the rest of you, or some person in America is going to hire you through freelancing. So that's how it's going to happen. We need all kinds of people. We can't have everybody innovating and nobody producing. So we need all kinds of people. But overall as a society, we need to become far more innovative and creative. And equipped with digital skills. So for example, one of the ministry's program is, they are training 110,000 girls starting from class 6 in programming in Baitul malls across the country and in 226 schools in Islamabad, federal area. So imagine these girls start programming from the age of 6. By the time they graduate, they should be very, very good. Some of them will form new companies and others will do freelancing work.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I would like to invite our head of department, Dr. Idris Khwaja, to conclude the session.
you heard about innovation. Innovation is disruptive. Innovation is crucial for economic growth. But what is the minimum requirement for innovation? As Yusuf said, that you need some skill set, you need some governance and other things. But the basic thing is that to be able to innovate, you need some knowledge. So the basic requirement is literacy. So this tells us about the importance of education. Then he told us that innovation is disruptive. So you can see that if the cab owners in Pakistan do not join Kareem and Uber, they might soon become irrelevant. And then as a business graduate, you can see what opportunities there are for you, even if you are not innovating. The number of times we hear that some student has invented or established this and that project or robot, and then that robot is lost somewhere. It is not commercialized. So the field for commercialization is wide open. How to commercialize an innovation? You can specialize in that. Then commercialization would need some registration, some governance issues to be settled, some permissions to be sought from government. There is a whole lot of field open to specialize in that. And then above all of that, to make a project successful, you need funding. So venture capitals are there, but there are very few in Pakistan. So again, the field for venture capitals is open in Pakistan. So there are a whole lot of fields to work upon as far as innovation is concerned, and probably you can specialize in that. So thank you, Yusuf sir, for giving us a very insightful talk and motivating the students to innovate. I will request the Vice Chancellor to give the sheet to the